We must hold firmly to his laws and principles, never adopting an unholy, compromising attitude toward them.
When you think of the organization and the education, the divine education that it provides, and really it is at no cost. There is no government on earth today that educates its citizens like the kingdom. The first thing that goes in a government, if they get into an economic problem, first thing they cut is education. Teachers are cut out, schools are closed.
We live in perhaps the most selfish time of all human history. And now you have students that come here, which is the epitome of unselfishness, being willing to do what they're asked to do by the organization.
They never lose what they have been taught at Gilead. They become spiritual men and women.
Something that is thrilling to see, and that I love seeing, is the transformation that the students make.
The beautiful thing about studying the Bible is we can go as deep as we would like.
Although Bible study can be enjoyable, we should not expect the Bible to read like a novel that is written just to entertain. We need to work at finding spiritual gems that will help us.
And it has the power to tame egos and to create humility within the student. And thus they become more spiritual people. They become more trusted by the organization.
Now that's worth repeating.
They become more trusted by the organization.
The United Nations is promoting the concept of global citizenship. Goals include encouraging international cooperation, respecting human rights, and protecting our planet. The reason? As expressed by Maher Nasser in the UN Chronicle, climate change, organized crime, rising inequalities, unresolved conflicts, mass displacement of people, global terrorism, infectious diseases, and similar threats do not recognize borders.
So friends, maybe some of our brothers and sisters are DACA recipients, but as Jehovah's people, we're all alien residents.
But
in a global way.
Others have gone even further, advocating a world government. Shortly after World War II, which saw the use of 2 atomic bombs, Albert Einstein wrote an open letter to the General Assembly of the United Nations. The United Nations, he said, must act with utmost speed to create the necessary conditions for international security by laying the foundations for a real world government.
We only see light when it's Jehovah's time to reveal light. And so this was the beginning of Jehovah's time to lead his people out of darkness into the wonderful light.
The keys of the kingdom, sometimes called the keys to the kingdom, represent the authority to open the way for people to enter into the kingdom of God. Jesus gave Peter the keys of the kingdom of the heavens. This means that Peter received the authority to unlock information. When Jesus spoke about the keys of the kingdom, he told Peter, "Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Matthew 16:19, the New American Bible.
And give it a twist.
During this part, I'm not going to have you twist God's word like Brother Pierce had you do.
Did you get the point?
It's not just a matter of Jehovah's becoming whatever he needs to become. That would limit Jehovah. But Jehovah can also cause his creation to become whatever he chooses. And yes, the great Jehovah can cause you to succeed at any assignment he gives you, whether at Bethel or in the field. So our prayer is that your reading and study of the Revised New World Translation will draw you closer, ever closer, to Jehovah.
È come un lievito invisibile che fa crescere tutta la pasta, che dà sapore a tutta la vita.
This is a theocracy ruled by God, not a collection of man-made decisions. This is governed from heaven.
Governed from heaven.
But as has often been the case, there was much more to come. Just think of some of the events that you have witnessed in recent decades. The Pioneer Service School, the Ministerial Training School, the School for Kingdom Evangelizers, Special Metropolitan Public Witnessing, a newly designed JW.org, Caleb, and the Become Jehovah's Friend series, the Revised New World Translation, and now a new language app to further train publishers to learn to speak the pure language in multiple languages. Video on demand, an entirely new website where people can watch morning worship and other video publications. And finally, a return to broadcasting. Our own TV station, JW Broadcasting, taking the Bible's message from world headquarters to the farthest reaches of the planet. Imagine what we will look back on at the 1,000th or 1,000,000th anniversary of Kingdom Rule.
We have considered what it means to be a spiritual person. The spiritual person understands God's viewpoint as well as the erroneous course of the physical man. Elders who have the mind of Christ often see early warning signs of fleshly thinking.
What is the role of elders in handling cases of serious wrongdoing? Regarding the wrongdoer, love moves the elders to consider, is he repentant? Can we help him to regain his spiritual health? In addition, some professing to be a part of the congregation have succumbed to perverted fleshly desires and have sexually abused children. Let us discuss why child abuse is such a grave sin. Then we will consider how elders handle instances of serious wrongdoing, including child abuse, and how parents can protect their children. The footnote reads, Expressions explained. Child sexual abuse occurs when an adult uses a child to satisfy his or her own sexual desires. It could include sexual intercourse, oral or anal sex, fondling of genitalia, breasts or buttocks, or other perverted acts. When elders handle any matter involving serious wrongdoing, the elders are primarily concerned with maintaining the sanctity of God's name. In addition, if the wrongdoer is a part of the congregation, elders are concerned with trying to restore him, if that is possible. A Christian who gives in to wrong desire and commits a serious sin is spiritually sick. This means that he no longer has a healthy relationship with Jehovah. In a sense, the elders are spiritual physicians. They endeavor to make the sick one, in this instance the wrongdoer, well. Do elders comply with secular laws about reporting an allegation of child abuse? When elders serve on a judicial committee, their role is spiritual or religious. Guided by the Scriptures, they judge whether the abuser is repentant or not. If he is unrepentant, he is expelled, and an announcement is made to the congregation. If he is repentant, he may remain in the congregation. However, the elders will inform him that he may never qualify to receive any congregation privileges. Who have the responsibility to protect children from harm? Parents do.
For the last 5 months, you've been sitting at Jehovah's feet, and you have been taught by your grand instructor. What you have learned is much more than you knew when you first sat down 5 months ago. Without a doubt, the knowledge you have taken in has brought you closer to Jehovah. You have really drawn close to Jehovah,
and he has drawn close to you.
Come sarebbe bello se, mentre scopriamo nuovi pianeti lontani, riscoprissimo i bisogni del fratello e della sorella che mi orbitano attorno.
Today, the center of true worship is no longer a literal temple on earth. There is, however, a spiritual temple, which glorifies Jehovah far more than any building. By 1919, those approved by Jehovah and serving at his spiritual temple were clearly identified. They had been spiritually refined. What Paul saw in a supernatural vision was referred to as a revelation. It involved a future event, not something that existed in his day. When Paul was caught away to the third heaven, what paradise did he see? The paradise that Paul spoke about would have a physical, a spiritual, and a heavenly fulfillment, all of which will coexist in the future. It can refer to the physical, earthly paradise yet to come. It can also refer to the spiritual paradise that will be experienced to the full in the new world. Additionally, it can refer to the blessed conditions in heaven in the paradise of God. The expression spiritual paradise has become a part of our theocratic vocabulary. Of course, we should not conclude that the terms spiritual paradise and spiritual temple are the same. The spiritual paradise serves to identify clearly those who have God's approval and who are today serving Him at His spiritual temple.
It's springtime on Saturn, and the hexagon is out. A perfect six-sided hurricane, 60 miles deep, that could swallow 4 Earths.
In esoteric astrology, we are told that Saturn, Shiva, and Jehovah are one. As we aspire to be actively engaged in the service of humanity, we are called upon to recognize, understand, and utilize the energies of the great Lord Saturn, and to apply his energies for the benefit of the group and the world. If we are to advance as the ancient wisdom teachings indicate, and to take our place as intended among the new group of world servers,
Christ, we are told, is to transmit the energy of a great life. Now listen to this carefully, particularly if you're an esotericist, because wrong information is being given out about the avatar synthesis. Christ, we are told in the teaching, is to transmit the energy of a great life. Transmit the energy of a great life, called the avatar synthesis. It is the energy that is needed at this time to keep our globe in line with divine intent. It is the duty of Christ to fuse and integrate with the avatar of synthesis. An avatar so powerful that only initiates like Christ can contact him. Humanity as a whole can have a chance to contact him through Christ. Christ is a bridge between the new group of world servers and that great source or power, the avatar of synthesis. He is bringing the energy of synthesis. The teaching explains that the 2 great tasks of Christ are, 1, to prepare his army of light, in tune with the energy of Aquarius and in harmony with the divine intent. And 2, to transmit the energy of synthesis to the world in such a way that people everywhere eventually respond to it and conduct their life toward a universal synthesis.
we need to fit ourselves for the opportunities and responsibilities of work that the sacred planet Saturn brings. Saturn is the dispenser of our allotted span of life and the bringer and upholder of divine law and purpose. He indicates the location of the test of personal responsibility that must be mastered in a life. He shows us the areas of crystallization from the past. He indicates where we may have got stuck or be limited by boundaries. Saturn offers opportunity for purification and insists that we live up to the law. From certain angles, Saturn can be regarded as the planetary dweller on the threshold, for humanity as a whole has to face that dweller as well as the angel of presence, and in doing so discover that both the dweller and the angel are that complex duality which is the human family. The Tibetan offers hope in the future when he says, "The sign of the Messiah's coming was the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Pisces." He hints at the creative power and importance of mind when he affirms that Saturn is the focal point for the transmission of cosmic mind to our entire 7 planetary schemes.
The ancient people declared that the distant planets and stars were the gods of their times. And today, we're specifically going to be talking about Saturn. So the ancients claimed that Saturn is so active in the cosmos that it was regarded by all of mankind as the supreme god and the creator, who is also known as El. And astronomers estimated that the planet Saturn exerted the greatest influence upon all the movements of the celestial bodies in our solar system. And in the very beginning, Saturn ejected filaments in all directions, and that the solar system became illuminated as if by hundreds and hundreds of suns. Hence, why the ancients also worshipped Saturn, or El, as the very first sun. And as strange as it may seem, as difficult as it may be to comprehend, the ancient Son of God is not the body we call sun today. In fact, early astronomical traditions identify this first sun, or best sun, as the planet Saturn. In fact, Saturn is esoterically associated with man's limitations, restrictions, death, and decay. Saturn has also throughout the ages collected various names from different parts of the world and in different languages. But in essence, the ancients have all been worshiping the same deity unknowingly. So if you take a look here at this picture, you could see that the god of Saturn is always and always represented by a very, very old man with a long beard, a sickle, and an hourglass throughout most ancient religions. And Saturn has always also been considered the god of all gods and the most powerful deity, no matter which civilizations we look at. Guys, Saturn is El, and this is very important to note. What makes Saturn's identity stand out that much more is the degree to which one nation after another repeated this same El-Saturn connection. So we could see that the Romans called him Saturnus, the pagans called him Pan, while popular Greek traditions identified Saturn as Kronos, the god of all Greek gods, who ruled over the North Pole, had a bad habit of eating all of his children, and who was also the ruler of time. Time being the main factor inevitably leading to the death of us mortals. In fact, all Semitic civilizations referred to the god Saturn as El, and Saturn is represented by a black cube. The Saturnian supreme deity ruled over the North Pole of Saturn in all civilizations. And as you could see here, the North Pole of Saturn is in a shape of a hexagon, which gives us a 3D cube. So let's focus now on how Saturn is represented by this black cube. And we can find many instances of this black cube across the whole world. From the Santa Ana Science Museum, to the Israeli flag, to the black cube of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, to the Kabbalistic tree of life, to everyday company logos, and to everything else in between and under the sun.
At one point, I'd gone through different levels of initiation in ceremonial magic, and I'd done some very powerful rituals. And I had this experience. I had happened to go home to visit, because this time we were living in Milwaukee. And I had gone home to visit my folks who lived in a little farm town in Iowa. And I was staying in my old bedroom. And for some reason, Sharon hadn't come with me. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was lifted out of my bed, carried through the roof of my bedroom, and I was sailing through the sky, through the stars, to the moons of Saturn. Now, that's pretty weird. I ended up landing on this moon of Saturn, and there was this obscenely bizarre-looking temple there. It was all totally black, totally out of whack. The angles were all wrong, spikes sticking out of it. It looked like a loathsome, diseased kind of black thing crouching on the plains of this moon. And I was told to go in, and I went inside, and there was this gentleman there who was my occult mentor, and he was wearing a white robe, and he kind of glowed in the dark like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars movies, you know. Well, anyhow, he says, "Welcome to the Cathedral of Pain." Now, somehow that didn't sound very good to me, but what could I do? I was out in the middle of outer space, you know. And so I walk into this thing, and it's an enormous thing like a cathedral, just huge, except instead of stained glass windows along the walls, there was these, like, imagine like giant aquariums, floor-to-ceiling aquariums, full of some kind of fluid in this green light bathing them, and except instead of pictures or whatever, floating in these two aquariums on both sides of the room were countless naked dead bodies, mutilated, horrible looking, you know, just floating there, including dead babies, dead children, dead adults, the whole bit. And I was just getting horrible feelings about this. There was this altar which was shaped like a trapezoid made out of girders in the middle of the room, and there was this huge throne made out of steel girders in the far side of this cathedral, kind of like if you were in like a Anglican or Catholic church, you know, in the rear. Well, what happened was I was told to lay down on this altar, and they tied me to this altar, and this is all happening in his dream. Was it a dream? I don't know. What happens? All these people come out in black robes and they start chanting, and for some reason they're chanting in French. And for some reason I understand French, even though I don't. And they're saying all these blasphemous things against the Almighty, which I won't even repeat, just cursing over and over again. And it's like they're trying to raise a level of power. And all of a sudden this figure materializes on this throne in the rear of this huge cathedral. And it's this giant ghastly figure, probably 25, 30 feet high. And it's like scintillating back and forth between this gorgeous looking man with long flowing hair to becoming like a winged bull, to becoming like a goat with wings and a human body. And it would go back and forth, like scintillating. So at the end, this thing gets up off the throne, and the chanting is getting more and more fierce and more frenzied, and he comes down. Every time he steps, the whole floor shakes. And he comes up to where I'm laying on this altar, and he has this vast hand that's like, 4 feet long, from thumb to finger, and talons. And he takes this finger and he pokes it right through my forehead, like this talon, and it like sears into my brain, and I feel this energy just burning my brain with white hot pain. And he said in this cavernous, sepulchral Darth Vader type voice, "Now you belong to me, body, soul, and spirit forever." And my brain like exploded at that point, and I felt myself hurtling back to earth in a fireball. And I landed in the backyard of my parents' house. I'm laying there stark naked in the middle of this burning circle of fire on the lawn. And I had a scar on my forehead, which is still faintly visible to this day, 20 years later. And it was like, whoa, you know, what happened here? And I kind of staggered back into the house. I had the mother of all headaches, and I didn't know what to make of it. But from then on, that was my Luciferian initiation, even though I didn't know it at the time. Soon after that, I was invited to join the Illuminati.
The chief advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, Sir John Dee, he was a Kabbalistic black magician. He had gone to the continent and learned from the top Jewish Kabbalists black magic, and he was the chief advisor in the British Empire. And he created Enochian magic and the Enochian language, which the Illuminati, which are hiding behind the Jehovah's Witness headquarters.
And if we can activate these properties in the right way, they have the ability to really be the heart of that triangle.
They use Enochian rituals. Sir John Dee conjured up demons or angels, okay, with his black magic. The beings that he conjured up, there were pictures drawn of them, and they look identical to what we call gray aliens. Okay, and tell you something. And then I visit with debriefing people that came out of high levels of the Illuminati, and these different types of aliens are participating in Illuminati rituals.
Interesting is that there was a huge satanic ritual that was performed on the very spot where Area 51 happened by this Jack Parsons, and in which they had this magical ceremony called Babylon Working, and it was designed by Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist who called himself the B666.
Yes.
And the purpose of this series of magical ceremonies, which was performed on the spot of Area 51, where it's now located, was to unseal an interdimensional gateway, they said. And so this, they hoped, would allow other entities known as the, quote, old ones, access to our space-time continuum. And this witness said that he saw Jack Parsons rip a hole in space-time there, and he said that something evil flew in. And one other interesting point is that Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist, who called himself the B666, as I just mentioned, he claimed to have contact with some kind of alien named Lamb. And this Lamb, he drew a picture of this alien that he was in contact, receiving messages from this being. And the picture that he drew of this alien, it's a striking resemblance to the common gray ET drawing. And what's interesting is this fellow Jack Parsons, who was the main person involved in this satanic ritual, he was involved in creating some of the most advanced technological stuff that we have right now in rocket propulsion systems. He was even involved with a lot of stuff that NASA does. They even named a crater on the moon. It's called the Parsons Crater. It was named after Jack Parsons.
Right.
So you see all the connections here.
You know, I've long believed that if there is satanic activity on this planet, and I believe there is, if they are in constant communication with these demons, or even if they conjure them up, Brother Michael, is it possible they do with their rituals and things like that?
Top secret Pentagon research projects have long been the stuff of conspiracy theories, but some of them are real. They actually happen. happened and they're worth knowing about. For example, this week, in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, the Defense Intelligence Agency disclosed that it had in fact funded research into UFO-related technologies. This would include the invisibility cloak, warp drives, and anti-gravity. The DIA spent $22 million from 2007 to 2005. The program apparently was initiated by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada. Nick Pope is one of the world's experts in this. He wants to investigate UFOs to the British government. He joins us tonight. Nick, thanks for coming on. It does sound like the core assumption of this research was that UFOs are real.
Yes, it really does. This is something of a bombshell, I think. For months, the Defense Intelligence Agency and the DoD have been trying to spin this story as, well, it's just about advanced aerospace weapons threats. But now we have this document which shows quite clearly what they were looking into. And it's nothing to do with airplanes. It's as you say, anti-gravity, invisibility, cloaking, wormholes, and warp drive. Some of this is about space travel.
These ideas are derived from objects that the U.S. government observed in space, presumably?
Well, we still don't know much of the story. We really only have a handful of papers and documents on this. I got this from the DIA's Office of Corporate Communications, and we're still trying to digest what this means. There are 38 papers that they produced under this contract, defense intelligence reference documents, looking at things which frankly sound like science fiction, and yet they're not. Our tax dollars have been spent on looking at this, and you know there's one of these papers which absolutely is critical. It's looking at something called the Drake equation. And the Drake equation is, this is supposed to be a way that astronomers can calculate how many intelligent civilizations there might be in our galaxy. Well, look, if this is not a UFO program, if this is just about Russian and Chinese aircraft, what the heck are they looking at that for?
Why wouldn't the U.S. government just say, I don't think it'd be especially controversial, we believe it's possible that there are other forms of life in the universe and we're looking into it. Why hide that?
Well, I hope that's exactly what they will now say. I think we know that this letter, which I've now acquired and which has been released under the Freedom of Information Act, we know that this went to Congress. We know that the Armed Services Committee is looking at this very seriously. They're also looking into those videos that we've talked about before of the Navy jets chasing UFOs. So I think the real question is what's going on behind the scenes? And I'm hoping that in the next few weeks, maybe months, Congress is going to say more about this. The Armed Services Committee will speak out, and maybe we'll have public hearings at which all this will be revealed.
So former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who was for many years in a position to have access to this information for certain, has basically said in public, I know a lot, I think this is real, but he hasn't gone farther than that. Have you spoken to him? Has anyone spoken to him?
I've not spoken to him personally, but I've seen some of his interviews. I've seen his statements. I've seen one of his documents. And for anyone who's trying to say, well, this isn't really about UFOs, it's about next generation aircraft, missiles and drones. No, it isn't. Harry Reid has made it perfectly clear. This is about anomalous objects in our airspace, and call them UFOs, whatever you like. You know, we take them seriously. The government has been looking at this.
Why all the lying? That's what piques my interest. It always piques my interest. Nick Pope, thank you for all the work you do on this. The non-crazy, sober, responsible work you do, and I appreciate it. Well.
C'è però anche chi dà vita a un mondo nuovo. E perciò, per favore, ricordatevi anche di me con tenerezza, perché svolga il compito che mi è stato affidato per il...
There is an apathy that is running rampant in this country that is deadly. Whether or not there are aliens. We are truly now at this moment a nation of sheep. And ladies and gentlemen, I assure you that sheep are always led to the slaughter. But it does not have to be that way. There is tremendous power in knowledge. There is also tremendous power in secrecy. Take away that secrecy, you make sure that you're informed, and you can change things.